Good afternoon, class. So today in social studies, we are going to be talking about the civil rights movement and some of the activists that were involved in this. So what was the civil rights movement?
People have the same rights.
Yeah, they wanted to have the same rights so basically African Americans wanted to have the same rights as the whites, right? So what were some things that kind of happened during the civil rights movement?
African Americans had to sit in the back of the bus.
Yeah, they had to sit in the back of the bus, so the buses had a colored section, and if the buses were full, the whites got to sit down in the colored section, and the African Americans would have to stand up. Okay? What else happened?
They couldn't use the same drinking fountain.
Couldn't use the same drinking fountain. They couldn't use the same bathrooms. They couldn't sit at the bars in restaurants. They couldn't do a lot of things that the whites could.
Everything was separated.
Yeah, everything was separated or segregated, right? So who were some of the activists in the civil rights movement?
Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin Luther King Jr.,
Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks,
Ruby Bridges.
Ruby Bridges. What did Ruby Bridges do?
Go to school.
She was the first African American girl to desegregate a school. So basically, she was the first colored girl to go to school with whites. How do you think that went over?
Not yet.
Not good. No, it didn't go over good at all. She actually had to be escorted into the school by the National Guard. Okay? So, what did they do? What did the activists do?
March.
They did a march on Washington. What else did they do?
Speeches.
Speeches. They gave speeches. Boycotts?
Yes.
What did they boycott?
Buses.
Buses?
Schools.
Not necessarily schools. Sit-ins. They did sit-ins in restaurants, okay? So they would go up to the bar, and they would sit down at the bar, and they would refuse to leave. Okay? So we're talking about activists, but someone who we're really going to focus on today is Martin Luther King Jr. Who is he?
The guy that made I Have a Dream speech.
He was the one that gave the I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C.
He changed African American rights.
Yeah, he was a big reason that African Americans have the rights that they have today, that they are equal in the eyes of the law, right? And so, you kind of answered my question already, but what did he do that made him so popular?
The I Have a Dream.
The I Have a Dream speech. Something else that made him popular, contrasted to some of the other civil rights movement, was he was peaceful. He peacefully protested. He got arrested multiple times, went to jail, but he was peaceful. He never used force to fight back, kind of the opposite of Malcolm X, okay? So I do have a book that we are going to watch on the TV. It is called Be a King, Dr. Martin Luther King's Dream and You. It is by Carol Boston Weatherford and illustrated by James E. Ransom, okay? So we're going to, it's a short video, it's about a 3-minute video. We're going to watch it, and then we're going to come back for a small group or a large group discussion and kind of talk about what we learned from the book, okay?
This book is called Be a King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Dream and You. It's by Carol Boston Weatherford, illustrated by James E. Ransom. This is a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. Martin Luther King Jr. So here's the beginning of our story. You can be a king. Marvel at creation. Keep the faith of your ancestors. that bigotry hurts. Remember how you felt when treated unfairly. You can be a king. Admit that you've done wrong. Just say, I'm sorry, and mean it. You can be a king. Know that dividing walls should come down. You have glimpsed the other side. You can be a king. Break the chains of ignorance. Learn as much as you can. You can be a king. Stand for peace. Band together against bullies. You can be a king. Sing a song of freedom. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. You can be a king. Stamp out hatred. Put your foot down. Walk tall. You can be a king. Answer your critics. Believe in your cause and state it plainly. You can be a king. Have a dream. Make yours great enough to grow it into. You can be a king. Make the world take notice. Do your very best at whatever you do. You can be a king. Beat the drum for justice. March to your own conscience. You can be a king. Lift up the less fortunate. Be the king or queen of health. You can be a king. Set your sights on the mountaintop. Climb a little higher every day. We've learned a little bit more about what Martin Luther King.
Okay, so what did you learn from that book?
You can be a king.
Or queen?
Queen.
They said be a king because Dr. Martin Luther King. But you can also be a queen, right?
Yeah.
So what were some things that you saw in the book?
That
Anyone? Can you tell me something that you guys saw in a book? Because I saw a few things in the book that I kind of want to go back and talk about, okay? So the first part of the book that I kind of want to go back to talk about is this scene right here. So it says, you can be a king and know that bigotry hurts, and remember how you felt when you were treated unfairly. So this is out of MKL's life. And when he was younger, he had a white friend. And one day, his friend's parent came over and told them that they no longer could play together. Okay, so how do you think he felt when his really good friend was not allowed to play with him anymore?
sad,
Sad?
mad,
Mad? Upset? So that's what they're talking about, bigotry. Basically, he didn't understand why, right? Why did it matter whether they were two different colors, two different skin colors, right? So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about in the book. The other one that I wanted to talk about was so here's another one. So we kind of talked about earlier about the bus boycotts and the buses, right? So we can maybe assume that this might be a bus boycott, right? Because during the bus boycotts, they did not ride buses at all. They walked everywhere, drove cars, kind of carpooled, right? So we can assume that maybe this scene is part of the bus boycott, right? Because there's no one on there, they're not making any money now. You know, they're kind of trying to prove that you guys need us to make this community and economy work, right? And then one more scene that I saw is this one. So it says, you can be a queen, answer your critics, believe in your cause, and state it plainly. So up here in this, what can you see up here?
A white and black kid.
Yeah, so this kid's like, you know, white, and he's a colored little kid. What else can you see?
they're working together.
Yeah, yeah, they're working together. Now, granted, the boy on the left is a little bit taller than the boy on the right? But they're still working together. And you can see him down here too, that, they're sharing supplies, working together. But this is the page that caught my attention, right? So it says equal rights for all. So when they're talking about equal rights, are they talking about just the color of your skin?
No.
What else are they talking about?
Men and women.
Men and women. What else are they talking about?
Voting.
What about disability? Right? So not only, we have an African American, we have, a woman, we have white children, but we also have a student that's disabled, right? So we also have to keep in mind about students that might have disabilities. Disabilities you might not be able to see. They might be internalized disabilities, but they still have disabilities nonetheless, right? And then this is Dr. Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech. He was at the Lincoln Memorial giving it there. A huge crowd. Okay, so this is a very important part of his campaign and trying to get equal rights. And then there's another scene in the book. This is the March on Washington, okay? So this is basically they all got together and marched to, well, this isn't the March on Washington. I take this back. This is the march where they went to I believe it was the capital of Alabama to protest their right to vote, because at this time colored folks didn't have the right to vote, and they wanted to change that because that's unfair, right? So throughout the book, you guys learned a little bit more, right? About learning what it means to be a better person, to kind of empower yourselves, and learned a little bit more about the civil rights movement. So we're going to take that, and I want you to remember some of the ideas and examples that were shown in the book, okay? And what you guys are going to do is you're going to think of those examples and think of some of the things that we talked about in class today, and you are going to write your own paragraph of basically empowering yourself and how you are going to be a king or queen and how you are going to create change in your own life, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be something big and huge like Dr. Martin Luther King did, but it could be as simple as maybe changing something in your community, okay? So that is going to be your guys' assignment for today, and that is going to be due at the end of the week, okay?